So welcome everyone to our last Pug of the year, our Pug DC. Yay! So kudos to Shannon who put all like this beautiful PowerPoint together. So thank you, Shannon. Looks great, very inclusive. So my name is Rocio Holub. Oh, let me see if I can. There we go. My name is Rocio Holub, and I am one of the leads, the Power BI user group leads in DC, along with Shannon, Z, and Gian, whom will join us at some point or another. So, thank you guys for joining us today too. So, who are we? We're a bunch of data lovers and enthusiasts. This is all volunteer run. We do it because we love it. We try to be very inclusive, and we're here to learn from each other. We're here to get to know you guys. I know we were just saying that we're not physically together, but hopefully this opens up opportunities to network and connect in other ways that were previously not possible. We're part of the Global Power BI user group, so just so you know that. So what is PUG for all of those who are new? It's not a dog, it's the Power BI user group. That's what it stands for. And so check out the website. And yeah, if you go to the website, basically there are a lot of links where you can learn about workshops that are happening around. Most of them are, I think all of them are free. Conferences, I think those you have to pay for. But then if you're looking for a job, there's some career opportunities as well. And it's a good way to find answers to questions that you may have or problems that you may be having with either Power BI or the Power Platform. Talking about the Power Platform, so what is it? It's a set of four tools: Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents, with, of course, all of that, the beauty or the power of that Power Platform being the data connectors, the AI builder, and the common data service, which is a repository that is common across the entire platform. But today we're really going to focus a bit more on Power BI, although we have some speakers who will talk about the rest of the Power Platform, so it's good to know. In terms of job opportunities, if you guys have anything that you want to share, please use the chat. If your company is looking for anybody who has experience in the Power Platform, not necessarily just Power BI. Here's one that Shannon put out, which is looks like this company SEI is trying to find a data and analytics consultant. So if you're interested, please check it out. Valentina. So Valentina, I believe, is looking for a job. That's correct. And so
no, sorry.
No, Valentina's not like, this is from okay, yes. Last month's okay.
So Valentina is with SEI now. She's newly there and she's trying to build her team. So she wanted us to help her find somebody.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, great. So Valentina, not looking for a job. She's looking to hire you for a job. So that's even better. Awesome. Okay, so just a little bit of a recap on what happened the entire year before we jump into our presentations. So we have 875 members, which is crazy. And we had 30% of those members were actually new in 2020. So round of applause for all of us. We held 12 events. So at the beginning of the year, just to let you know, Shannon gave us, Z, Gian, and I gave us the challenge, like, what do you guys think about having a PUG meeting every month? We used to have them every quarter. And we're like, yeah, I think we can do it. We can commit to it. Some of us were a little skeptical that we could do it, but we ended up actually accomplishing it somehow. I don't know how, but we did it. And that's awesome. And not only that, we also held a full day training on Power BI right before COVID hit, which was Power BI Days. And it was the first entire day Power BI Days held in the US, I believe, at the time. Also, Shannon, Z, and I, and a few of you guys were able to participate and present at the Power Platform World Tour, which took place, wow, that was right before COVID at the beginning of March, I believe. So we were still in person. And so that was a lot of fun. And oh yeah, and we also get the Regional User Group Spotlight Award. Yay! Yes, all of us. So here's Shannon's presentation on our year for review. January, this is how we began. We had the guy in a cube, guys, which was awesome. It's a picture of all of you, and you'll see we have the pizza there. We were at Microsoft Chevy Chase, Maryland. This was our Power BI day, so a little, just refresher. It was a full day of Power BI training. So fun, free to the entire community. Yep. Did anybody speak? Yeah. This was Z and I presenting at the Power Platform, and I know Shannon was there, Jamie was there. I'm sure a lot of others were there as well. So we had then after that happened, that was exactly the beginning of March. Then we had a bunch of virtual meetings, and here we are meeting virtually. Thank you. We want to say thank you to our speakers. So here are a few of them, a really quick recap on who's presented, and thank you to the presenters who are here today as well. So here are a few fun pictures that Shannon has specifically selected. Some more presenters. So thank you guys if you're on the line. And Shannon's funny backgrounds. Very fitting. And so that's it. That's it for our little recap for the year. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to Shannon, who's really the heartbeat of our team, and to Gian and to Z and to everyone who's presented and participated this year. We hope that 2021 will be awesome. Better than 2020, hopefully, right? So without further ado, let's go into our demos. So we have, you can see that we have a bunch of demos that are happening today, but we'll start with Daniel. So let me stop sharing. But yeah, if there are any questions, I guess, are there any questions from anybody? Nope. Awesome. Check out our resources. And Shannon wanted me to tell you, if you want to get involved, please let us know. And if you have ideas for meetings for next year, also let us know for things you want to learn. Okay. And our contact information, shoot us an email if you need anything. Okay, cool. Thank you. So let me stop sharing. And Daniel.
Yes. Good evening. So let me go ahead and share this. 5 minutes, I'm going to be on time, I promise. So today I want to talk about process mining. Most likely, Power BI users, you probably haven't heard of process mining and certainly probably don't use it. But it's an analytical discipline that was started 15 or 20 years ago in Germany, and it came out of research projects in a number of universities in that area. And then spread, companies started, it took off in Europe and has been moving to the US over the past 3 to 5 years or so. The goal of process mining as an analytical discipline is to understand not KPIs about what's going on in your organization, but look at a process from end to end and look at root causes of what might be going on in that process and how that's impacting the KPIs you look at in your Power BI dashboards. The way it works is by looking at transaction logs or audit logs in your transactional systems. So SAP, Oracle, Dynamics, ServiceNow, Salesforce, systems like that track your processes and your transactions. It automatically pulls in audit logs, then uses those audit logs to recreate your process. To be able to do that, you need access to 3 pieces of data. The first piece of data you need is a transaction ID or some unique variable that you can, or unique ID that you can use to follow your transaction all the way from start to the end of your process. Second, you need unique event names. So what happens in your process, like create PO, issue PO, receive invoice, pay invoice. And then third, you need a timestamp. So when did that event actually happen? So if we have those 3 pieces of data, we put that into visuals inside of Power BI and automatically create a map or a process model that looks like this. It also will automatically show you things like where's the bottleneck in your process, right? It'll show you right in red what is the step that takes the longest. It'll show you by arrows, thickness of arrows, where did the most cases go through your process. And you might think that your process is really simple and straightforward like this, But what you would actually find is there are many variants or many ways that a transaction flowed through that particular process. And as you build it out, you can actually see how complex your process becomes. Right? In this case, I have 186,000 cases. And if I look at all the 9,000 variants, it becomes a spaghetti chart, right? Something that's really hard to see and understand without narrowing it down to a specific variant that you want to use. So Gartner's been tracking this since 2018. They have two process mining basically market guides, and they have a list of criteria to be process mining: automatic discovery, process conformance checking, the ability to look at transactions across process, and task mining for RPA and things like that. Most common use cases: procure to pay, order to cash, production planning, automation opportunities, and then customer journey mapping coming later. One of our most unique scenarios is we actually, for Air Canada, model airplane flights from the time the doors close to the time it lands, collecting events like door closed, throttle, taxi, altitude, and even ringing your flight attendant button. So real quick, that was the overview. If you want to learn more, you can actually download our free visual and do process mining yourself right here at AppSource. So take a screenshot of this, get that URL. Tomorrow I have an hour-long webinar on what is process mining at noon. And then I'll be back in February and go through a longer presentation on process mining. Get a screenshot of that, and then here is my contact information. Give me a call, shoot me an email, send me a text if you have any questions. On time? Did I make it?
That was perfect.
Questions? Anybody? I think we had 5 minutes at the end, right? If somebody has something.
I have a question. This is Sandeep. Really cool. Is this used in the manufacturing industry? I'm probably guessing yes. And then second question is, do you also support simulation, process simulation?
Yeah, manufacturing industry is the #1 vertical, mostly because of procure to pay, right? Since there's a lot of procurement, a lot of paying. And yes, we do simulation to help you understand what might happen if you make changes to your process.
Does your do you also offer a GUI to collect all the data, or this is more of just a plugin for Power BI?
Yeah, our product has two components. One is a ETL component to collect all the data from the transactional system, put it into your data warehouse or data mart, can transform it into a easy to use audit log into one or two different tables. So that's our ETL. Okay. And then second are the visuals in Power BI to make that useful for you.
Thank you.
Hey, Daniel, and those visuals are custom visuals that you built out, or your team built out?
That's right, custom visuals that we built.
Hey, Daniel, quick question on the data sources. Is there a specific source you work with, or is any data that you have, you can just have a message in a format that's consumable by the platform?
Yeah, so the data comes from really any source, right? SAP, Salesforce, Oracle, Dynamics, it doesn't really matter. And then we get that exported into your data lake, massage it into a audit log that we can use.
Got it, thank you.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. So we have Jamie.
Thank you. Give me 1 second to share my screen. All right. All right, everybody. So this next thing is nothing to do with Power BI. Hope that's okay. What I'm going to be talking about, though, is Power Automate and Teams. So here I am in Teams. And what you can do if you wanted to connect, you can actually build a flow inside Teams. I don't know if you knew that. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to go ahead and I see it says Power Automate, but if I were to search, I could add it in like that. And it literally changed since yesterday, because yesterday it was called Flow. So somebody must have read my blog and changed it. If you see Flow somewhere, though, Power Automate used to be called Microsoft Flow. Now, my recommendation is if you want to create a flow for the first time, take advantage of these templates. The odds are somebody's already solved the problem you want to solve. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to create a post inside Teams when your favorite blog gets updated. But there's a lot of different scenarios that have already been done by Microsoft and sometimes by third parties. And so take a look and see, because again, it's very possible that what you're trying to solve has already been solved. There's something very close to it. For today, though, I'm going to use social media, and I'm going to come here when a new RSS feed item. RSS is something to do with syndication. I forget the exact what it stands for. I love acronyms. Basically, it's a way of following a blog. And what you can do is actually train the flow to follow the blog for you. And then when something gets posted, send you a message in Teams. Or in this case, send a message to a team. So if, say, in your organization, if you want everyone to know when a Power BI blog gets updated, you could do that. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to come in here and click on this. And first thing it says is flow name. Always a good idea to give your flows a reasonably understand name, because even though end users probably won't see this, you're going to know. And if someone else comes along after you, they'll know what it means. I've already signed in, but if you hadn't signed in, you would have to come in here and create connections to get the little green check marks. So that's another step. I'm going to click continue. So at this point, I need three things. I need to know the URL of the RSS feed. I need to know what team it's going into, and then what channel. So how do I get the RSS feed? Well, it depends on the blog, but in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and let me see here. I'm going to come into the Power BI blog, and you'll see here it says subscribe. A lot of blogs have a subscribe button. If you click it and you see this is sort of the universal RSS icon, click that, and it actually brings up the RSS feed. And all you need is the URL, copy it, and then I'm going to paste it. And then depending on your organization, you may have one, you may have hundreds of teams, so you can search for your team if you want. I created a demo team here. And then this is another tip I'll have for you, which is if you're testing this for the first time, you might want to create a test channel to do your test. But in this case, I already have a Power BI channel, and that's where I want my Power BI blog post to go. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to click Create Flow. And there it is. We're done. You could just walk away at this point, click Done, and whenever a Power BI blog gets posted, it'll show up in your channel. But if you want to see what it looks like and make some tweaks, you can click View Workflow. There's the name I gave it. I can click Edit. I can come in here, and it's just two actions. The first one is the URL of the RSS feed, and then this is a post your own adaptive card as a flow bot to a channel. That's a mouthful. So what is this doing? This is basically doing two things. One, it's posting the blog name and title, the date it was published, and a link back to that blog post. And it's doing it inside what's called an adaptive card. Now, if you don't know what that is, you can go to adaptivecards.io, and I'll post that in the chat, or someone else can do that for me. And this will actually allow you to create your own adaptive card, which will end up looking similar to this. So you can come through here, you can get some examples, and you create your own adaptive card. So here, it's done it for me. And what this looks like in Teams when it posts is, it looks like this. So you got RSS feed updated, then it has the feed title, and then which you could format. I didn't add the formatting, but you could format this to make it more user friendly, and then a link, and you click the link, and then it takes you to the blog. In this case, my blog, which is coincidentally about what we just talked about. So check that out if you want more. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Well, I'll hand it over.
All right. So no questions for Jimmy? Oh, yep.
I have a question.
Okay.
So essentially anything, sorry for the noise here. Anything, is that, you just connected it to a blog through RSS feed. So you're saying, like, you know, if you have a RSS feed for, like, I'm just kind of thinking about perhaps connecting it to something else with an RSS feed, like maybe ServiceNow or something like that. Would it work?
Sure. It might. It might. That it's looking for some specific parameters that come from blogs, but you can customize it. So the RSS reader will just return a JSON, it'll return the XML, and it'll parse the XML, and then you can then customize what you do with it. So it takes it in. So here I'll go a little. Let me just share my screen one more time. So if I come into Flow again, sorry, it's not Power Automate. Literally, I just wrote the blog yesterday and they've changed the name. So if I come in here to my Flow and I click Edit, what's happening is, actually, it'll be easier if I just add a temporary component. This is another tip. If you're just trying things out, try the compose action. You can do anything in there. And I'm going to come in here and look at dynamic values. These are all the values that are returned by this action. So you'll see here it says feed ID, feed title, primary feed link, feed updated on, feed published on, feed summary. So your data source may have different information, but in theory, it'll show up here as an option, and then you can use that however you want in whatever you want. It doesn't have to go to Teams. You could post it as an email. You could send it as a text message. You could send it as a chat message to yourself. You could send it as an alert to your phone. There's many different actions, and the whole list of actions, which is over 300 at this point, is all in here. And just keep in mind that some are standard and some are premium, so your licensing may vary. Any other questions? Yeah, no problem.
I had one more kind of question off of that. Is say we don't, like in the corporate realm here, we don't have it Power Automate. We have it separately, but we don't have it as a, I guess, app within Teams. Is that is that possible to do it with the standalone Power Automate?
Of course. Yeah, I was just showing it off because I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, you could totally come here and you can come to templates and you could search for RSS. There's actually more RSS flows here. So you can see all the various templates here. Some you saw already, but then you have other ones like you can do the Twitter, which may scare some people, but you can do the Twitter. You can do SharePoint list, Yammer, if you have a Yammer community in your company. You could post to a Yammer community. You can save into Excel spreadsheets. There's all sorts of things. There's Slack even. So there's a lot of options here.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else? All right, I'll hand it over.
Well, thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate it. That was great. So you're next. You'll be presenting on using Power BI data flows.
Yes. Yeah. So my name is Dat again. I'm working at an animal feed company in the Netherlands. Since I have only 5 minutes, so I will jump directly to my topic. So I will show a slide to talk about the high-level idea, and then the report to show the use case why it's needed, and then finally the Power Query to demonstrate how I did it in more details. So today I will talk about using the data flows and Azure Data Lake Storage in Power BI. The report that I use for the demo is a simplified version of one of my past projects. So I have already anonymized all of the sensitive data. And as you can see here, the data sources are the project online and also Excel files in SharePoint. I transform the data in the data flow and then refresh it. And then after every refresh, it will be saved inside the ADOS in my organization Azure account. I will show you here. So these are the CSV files saved automatically in the ADOS. And for the Power BI dataset, I created two tables. One of the table coming from the data flow, which shows only the current status, the current overview of all the projects in the portfolio. And then another table coming from the ADOS showing the progress of the projects, but not only for the current progress, but also the progress in the past. This table is a PSA table, if in terms of a SQL term. And okay, now I will show you my report. So as you can see here, this page, you see the current overview of all the projects. And if I right click here and then I go through, you will see it's the detailed historical view of this project. And here I have a slicer, history day. You see that the percentage of complete is 37. But if I change it into another date, you will see that it changed. And also the text here changes accordingly. Okay, and now I think I will share the Power Query to show you. So basically, I have two groups of queries here, but I will focus today on the second group only, the historical data from the ADOS. It has three subgroups, and and this subgroup actually does the magic here for me. So for the ADOS, as you can see here, I open it again. Actually, there are many folders in this ADOS. And what I did with this query is that I filter only the needed CSV folder. And I use this query as a source, as a reference for other queries. So for the next query, I use the source. As you can see here, the source as the selected folder. And then what I do is that I filter here. I click the is latest, and then it will filter only the latest file, which is the 8th of December, as you can see here. And then I choose only the name column, and I drill down to make it as a record, to use it as a filter condition for the next query. And then, as you can see here in this next query, I have again the source, which is the selected folder. And here I filter the necessary dates because the business owner, they want only to see the date, the 4th, and then the 20, and also the latest date of every month. So the 4th and 20 of every month, and then the latest date. And what I do next is here I choose only the dates modified column, and then I add another column, which is the date column. And as you can see here, for one day, by accident, there are two CSV files. So what I did is I group by the dates column, and then I choose the max time of the date modified. And in the next step, you will see that I have only the latest file here. And I inner join again with the selected folder query here with the aim to get another column, the content column from the selected folder. And here when you see, actually they are the CSV files in the ADOS. And then I click the combine function here, and it will automatically, Power Query will automatically generate this subgroup of queries for you, including the parameter, the sample file, and then the transform file function, and this one. And with this, those things, I will create my last query, which is this one, the project progress history, which is the one that I show in the report. And again, the source is from the selected file query. And I go to the add column here. I click the invoke custom function, which will open this window. And I will choose the transform file for the function query, the transform file function. As you can see, it's here. And then the content for the parameter 1. And after I click OK, I will choose, it will create a new column, the transform file column here. And then I choose only the 2 necessary column, which is the date and then the transform file. And for the date here, I will use this one as a slicer for the history date here. And yeah, and after that, I just expand the tables here with all of the columns. And as you can see, they are here. And then I rename the columns from column 1, column 2 into more meaningful column names. And then I change the column types. And the steps below here are just for me to anonymize all of my data, like project manager name, project name, and also randomize the actual and budget numbers. So yeah, that's it. Ooh. Sorry, I ran out of time a bit, but yeah, do you have any questions?
I think everybody was commenting that everything you were doing was like magic. So when you get a chance to see
thanks.
the chat, you'll laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any questions.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Sandeep.
Sure.
So that do you go back? Do you go back and clean up your ADLS?
Yeah.
All the refresh data. How do you do that? Do you do that? How do you do that? Like manually, or do you automate that?
Okay. So after the data flow, the data flow, when you refresh it, it will automatically save the snapshot into the ADLS. But by default, actually, it's a really good question. Because I didn't have time, so I didn't explain that. But if you, by default, it will be managed and will be stored in Power BI service. So you have to configure yourself a bit to put those snapshot files in your own Azure accounts. And there is one documentation on Microsoft telling you how to, let's say, move those CSV files from the Power BI service. They did it like in black box and changed them into our own accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome.
All right. If no more questions, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was magic. It was so great. It was magic. So up next we have.
Yep. Yeah. So this is Sandeep. So I work as a simulation and data analytics engineer at Cree Lighting in Wisconsin. So thanks for inviting me to your PUC, and really appreciate the opportunity here. So forecasting is something that I work on really pretty much all the time. And I'm sure some of you might have done forecasting in Power BI. If not, let me show you how easy it is to do it. So I have a data source, and now what I'm going to do is just create a line chart. So I grab the visualization for the line, and then I drag my date and my sales into it, and then get rid of the hierarchy. And then magically I go to the analytics pane, forecast, add, and boom, you have the forecast. All good, right? My talk is over. Well, not so fast. If I go to the data labels here and then add data labels, you can see the data labels, but can you spot the problem? There are no data labels on the forecast here. And some of the observations from here are that, let me zoom in here a little bit. The limitations of using this is it needs to be a line chart. The x-axis must be continuous. The anomaly detection that was launched recently, in fact, last month, I guess, if you have to use it, if you turn it on for your line, then you cannot use forecast. The data labels are not available, as I said earlier. If you want to use the forecast values in your measure or calculated column or anything, or your smart narrative for that matter, it's not available. The forecast changes with the slicer, which is not optimal because a number of reasons that we won't get into here, but you cannot add multiple columns or lines. So if I were to add another line here or a column here, the forecast will go away. This cannot be used for any high frequency time series, meaning this data shows time series that is for quarterly data. So the time series forecasting in Power BI only supports weekly, monthly, yearly, quarterly data, but not so much the hourly or daily data if you have it. You cannot track any accuracy data, the forecast accuracy over a period of time, or the data drift that might be associated with your data. You cannot do any hierarchical forecasting. So lots of limitations. It's pretty cool that you can create a forecast so easily in Power BI, but there are 100 different limitations that you have to get over to do it. So what are the solutions? Well, one solution is you can use Python within Power BI. And the way you would do that is go to your Power Query, and then please don't judge me by the applied steps. I haven't really cleaned this up, so not as good as that. But when you go to your, and then go to transform, and then run Python script, create a Python script. So let me do that here. And you can create your R or Python, drop your R or Python script here. It could be anything. And then you can create your forecast model, which I did here. And if you see on the left-hand side is the forecast in Power BI. So that is pretty static, does really nothing. And here is the dynamic forecast that I created here in Power BI if I use Python. So this really allows you to create more accurate and dynamic forecast. I think what if parameter is going to be the next topic here, but you can also create what if parameter here to say, okay, will my forecast be, $1 million? Well, there is only 7% chance because you can extract all the statistics and the summary statistic out of it. Well, what if you want to go next step? What if you want to create a forecast for multiple products? You are a retailer and you have hundreds and thousands of stores like Walmart, Target, and thousands of products or millions for that matter within your company. How do you create a forecast for that? You cannot create a Python script within Power BI to do that. So the answer is you can use Azure ML. And the way I did it is, and that really showed it in his talk, so I don't have to cover it here. But you create the ETL from your ERP or whatever your data source is, data flow, create a data flow refresh schedule, save all those CSV files to your ADLS. And then in Azure ML, there are multiple ways you can access that. You can access it programmatically just by mounting that ADLS as a data store and then registering all those files as a data set, and then create a machine learning pipeline in Azure ML. It doesn't have to be Azure ML, but the ecosystem here with Azure and Power BI and everything really helps you a lot here from authentication purposes and everything else. So you create that, create your forecast script, and I can actually show you the forecast script here. So in this particular example, I have 3 products, and for each of the 3 products, I created 1,100 different forecasts, and then create an ensemble of all those forecasts and identified which one would be the best, created that. And this is my forecast script as a containerized Docker container, deploy that to Azure ML. and then send the predictions back to, it doesn't have to be ADLS, but send it back to ADLS and then import it into a data flow or Power BI data set, and then publish that as a Power BI dashboard. So what does that look like is right over here. So if I zoom that in, we do that. And so this is what the final dashboard would look like. In this case, I just have 3 products selected, but it could be a number of products. And then, like I mentioned earlier, now you're able to access the forecast for each of the different products that you have. You can create your forecast for by region, by company, by product levels, or product different commodities, etc. You're also able to extract all the forecasts and then create measures out of them. And what's more important is that you can create, you can track the data as to whether it is, if there is any data drift, or if any out of object, out of core distribution shift or anything else. So basically, create your MLOps and data ops within your Power BI, and everything works perfectly. So yeah. And then last but not the least, if you are interested in this topic, I'm actually presenting this tomorrow at Austin Power BI user group. So just follow that link, and then I'll be talking about it for an hour, if that is of interest to you. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm pretty active there, and then follow my blog at pawarbi.com. So that's about it. Thank you.
That was so great, Sandeep. Yay! We love your blog. It's been shared already.
Thank you.
Any questions from anybody? All right. Yep.
Sorry, yes, Sandeep. It's that again. Thanks a lot for your presentation. I find it very useful. And I have one question about the Python. When you use Python in the Power Query, and then if you publish it onto the Power BI service, and then it cannot be set for the schedule refresh, right?
You cannot. Yeah. So that is, in fact, if you go back, I can refer you to my blog. I highly discourage anyone to use Python within Power Query because it's not optimal. There are hundreds of different limitations when you use Python. Where I would use it as a test case, where before I publish anything, or if I want to do anything, I would create the Python script transformation, show it to my users, see how it works, if this is what they are looking for, and then deploy that as a service in Azure ML or anywhere else.
Okay, but not in the Power Query, right?
I wouldn't do that. Yeah, not within Power Query. You can, but there are limitations, as I said. One of the biggest limitations there is that you have to make your data source as public. That doesn't mean that people outside the company can access it. It's just that the way Microsoft does it, and Alex is on the call here, he can probably talk more about it. But the way Microsoft does it is Microsoft, I guess, segregates your data sets based on privacy. So people outside the company still can access it. It's just that it's not secure anymore. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Cool. Thank you so much, Sandeep, again, and really appreciate it. Okay, so up next, Sekou, do you want to give it a go right now? Awesome.
All right. Much better, right? This time, I think you all can see my screen now.
There we go. We can see it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. So Sekou Tyler, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. You can follow me, Sekou, sekousekou.com, a blog, Gmail, if you want to email me after this. And also co-lead the National Power BI user group here. We have a meeting Thursday, small marketing, but we have Alberto come in to talk about calculation groups on Thursday. So good session. I'll send a link out after this, but if you don't have anything to do around 11:30 Central Time, come and, holler at us and come be part of our group. All right. So I am doing what if parameters. So what if parameters lets you see how your data behaves under the different conditions, add them to reports as slicers or references them in other DAX expressions. I pretty much just copied what this said under there. So I didn't really type this out, but pretty much I'm going to do what it's saying. I'm going to add them to reports as slicers or reference them in other DAX expressions. So the first part here, I call it calculator. In essence, I'm just using this parameter that I built out. Oh, before I even start, if you're not familiar with what if parameters, basically it's just a disconnected table that is generating a series, and you're telling it the values that you want and then the increments. So for this example, I'm saying I want 0 to 50 and the increments of 1. And then the actual slicer itself is just using a selected value piece from the table that's being generated. So this is my what if parameter, and then from there, I am just going to reference it in these different DAX equations that I have. So for the first one, I'm calling it multiplication. So all I'm truly doing is just taking a sum of my measure and multiplying it by the user selection. Similar concept with subtraction and this percent change. So all I'm doing when I use these what if scenarios is kind of give my end users the self-service feel, quotations, with their interaction. So second part would be forecasting revenue goals. My forecast is not as great as what we just saw. This is very simplistic. So basically what I'm doing here is just I'm taking a total sum of sales, and based on their user selection, if we looked at the sales, multiplying it by 3, and we're just pulling these levers. So we're letting our user pull some levers to see if we had 1 times revenue, 2 times revenue, 3 times revenue in sales, what would we be at in this time frame? So similar, very simplistic forecasting. There's some stuff out there that uses what if parameters for forecasting models. This isn't it. This is just a very simplistic model there. One particular use case that I do have that I use for work. So executive level audience wants to come in. They want to have a rolling 7 days visual where I'm looking at stuff over time, and they want to break it by region, and they also want to see the total sales. They don't want any interaction. They don't want to use a date slicer to combine or do in between. They want this rolling 7, but then they want to be able to aggregate this information together. So one way that we have here is using our what if parameter. With a little bit of DAX, we see here, this is highlighted. We're looking at today's date. So we see we have 35,000. But if I am a user, I would say, let me look at the last 3 days. I can select the last 3 days. It aggregates this information together for me. And I can see the breakout by region, and I can see what's been selected here, highlighted. That way I know these are the dates that I'm looking at particularly, which is the highlighting piece here. So a little bit of DAX, nothing too crazy. But if I'm looking at total sales, here, I'm basically doing just a calculate formula, looking at sum of sales, and I'm using a date and period. One thing that I do when I'm using what if parameters, I kind of look at what in the formula would be like a -1 or -2 or some type of user input, and then I look to add this parameter value in there. So that way it gives my users some control when it comes to stuff that they're looking at. So very simplistic calculated formula, and with the ability to use a what if parameter, it gives them look and feel to answer that question and let this be a rolling 7 day. And then here I am doing some DAX as well. I'll show you the table. So basically I'm doing a date diff to get this conditional formatted highlighted. I'm pretty much saying, hey, looking at the max date in my table, doing some subtraction, and then of these last days, make it a 1. And if it's 1, color this background for me. So again, giving just a little bit of look and feel. If anybody's familiar with the Gestalt principles, you're trying to do the law of focal point where you're trying to call out specifically what they're looking at. So this is what this is doing. This is what's trying to drive there. Another thing that I've done is with rank. So if anybody has used the rank X function, I am using parameters within here as well. So simplistic formula here, using the rank X, using all selected, and just calculating the total sales. So I am looking at, here's my sales per state. I'm looking at a rank. And what I'm basically doing here is giving the ability to highlight. So if there's a use case where I don't necessarily want to filter, I want to highlight it, I can use this particular background image as a way to use that. Another way to do this is say, hey, I want to look at my last in sales, but I actually want them to be filtered down. I don't necessarily want to just show it. I can do some calculations here to where now this goes away depending on what's being selected. So this formula here is basically looking at SADAC. So it's basically just using a switch statement. So if my parameter has been set to 0, give me all the total sales, else give me basically what I selected. So here, if I just select, the last 20 days, this is filtering down that information there, and so on and so forth. So how this plays out, if I have a map without doing any additional formatting or slicers and modeling and stuff, you can quickly do this. I can do give me the top end states. This would affect the tree map here. I got some highlight action here, and then I'm plotting some information on my map. So leveraging different things, again, just doing stuff in DAX that's pretty cool and lets your user feels like they're pulling levers to see different things. And that's all I got.
Questions from the team? All right. Well, thank you so much, Sekou. That was awesome.
Thanks.
I definitely don't know much about what if parameters, so I am going to check everything that's being shared right now and learn more. This is really, really interesting. Thank you. All right. So up next, we have Andy with SIPNAS Analytics. Z. Do we have Andy?
Hey, Andy, you're muted. You're speaking.
Can you hear me okay?
All right, there we go. Yes.
There we go.
Oh.
Is that background?
There is background.
We're the guest presenter.
Let me share my screen.
What are they doing background? Hmm?
There we go. Okay. So, can you see my Synapse Analytics workspace?
We can.
Okay, so what I will do is bring up my slide at the beginning. I'm not going to go through the slides because it's demo heavy, right? But what I'm looking at is using Azure Synapse Analytics SQL Serverless in Power BI data flows. So don't panic. It's pretty simple. We're going to go through that. A little bit about me. You probably won't have heard of me, but I am an independent consultant and contractor for about the last 2 or 3 months. I used to be permanent for about 20 years, and now, I'm in the big bad world of working for myself, doing a little bit of blogging and getting involved in Power BI. My interest in Power BI is really specific to data flows themselves. I'm a little less on, let's say, the front end and the DAX. I see some really cool reports and some really, colourful and interesting reports, and I think I'd really love to do that. I'm more on the back end, on the data warehousing side. We are going to jump straight into the demo, and I'll talk about all the components as we go through this. But ultimately, we're going to be creating a Power BI data flow which connects to Synapse Analytics and uses the SQL Serverless engine to query data and load data in to the data flow that's stored in the data lake in Gen 2. I'm going to do the example with Parquet, which is a column store based file storage, but it works with CSV and JSON. So if we jump back in. Okay, now this is the Synapse Analytics workspace. You've probably heard all the announcements around Synapse Analytics, dedicated SQL pools and Data Factory and Power BI integrated. We're actually going to use this with the SQL Serverless engine. Okay, so there is no data stored within Synapse Analytics itself when you use SQL Serverless. It's all in the data lake. Let's get into creating our objects, which I'm going to do on the fly. Yeah, I'm daring to do it. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a database. I'm going to run that. And we're done. Okay, I'm going to refresh up here. And I can see that I've got my new database. And all it is, it's just an empty database. It's just metadata. Okay, I'm going to create a schema. And I'm going to create a master key and a credential, because I can connect via my own Active Directory through Power BI to Synapse Analytics and ultimately to the data lake itself. Going to run that. Okay, in my data source, I need to tell Synapse, well, where's my data lake? So here it is. I'm going to run that. We're going to go into file formats. And I'm going to create a Parquet format and also a CSV format, just so that you can see that I can create 2 file formats. All this does, this tells Synapse what files we're dealing with when we talk to the data lake. So we've got CSV, delimited text, and we've got Parquet. So we're going to run those statements. Now we're going to create external tables, and this is what will give Power BI data flows visibility into our objects in SQL Serverless. So we're going to create an external table. That's the important keyword. The data isn't stored and cannot be stored within SQL Serverless like a SQL database or the dedicated pools. It's all in the data lake storage. And we're going to tell it, well, there's the location, there's the folder structure. It supports, you know, a nested folder structure if you've got data in dated folders. We're going to tell it where the data lake is, and we're going to tell it what the file format is. Okay, so I'm just going to run this. I'm not going to run the CSV for the sake of demo time. And then let's have a look. And are the demo gods smiling? Let me do a little count. Oh, there we go. And that's cheating because that was the other one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we've got our data lake demo. We've got a count of around 22 million rows. That's across three Parquet files, which are totaling probably around 550 meg. Just for reference, the equivalent 22 million rows in CSV is about, what's that, around 4.2, 4.3 gig. We go back to our Synapse. That's it. We've set up Synapse to talk to our data lake and we can query it. Let's do a little quick top 5. And we can see, there we go. We've got it's a fact table, essentially. Fact internet sales from our good old friend, the AdventureWorks database. Right, let's jump into Power BI and see how this looks. I'm going to create a new data flow. I'm going to define a new entity, and this is regular Power BI Pro. I have not enabled premium. There is no premium per user or embedded being used. This is, you know, Power BI Pro. I'm going to search for SQL, and I've got a choice. I can actually use SQL database, or I can just use the Synapse Analytics SQL DW. It's not the dedicated pools, but it gives us a server and a database to enter. If I go to my Synapse Analytics workspace, I've got this serverless SQL endpoint. I'll copy that into my server. Okay, called Data Lake House Demo. We're going to use our Active Directory authentication. It's just going through. I click next. We should see our table. So Power BI or Power Query, whether it's in desktop or data flows, just sees the table as a regular database table. Okay, so it's going to do a preview and we'll transform data. And really the crux of me looking at using SQL Serverless with data flows is that I often do some transformations within data flows against large data sets. So I'm looking to aggregate data, reduce the overall footprint of the data while I'm bringing it into Power BI. So for this example, I've got 22 million rows in my source, but I don't want 22 million rows in my data flow. I don't need that granularity. So we're going to do And again, I'm not an M aficionado, but I'm going to do a group by. I'm going to click advanced. I'm just going to add some groupings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we'll group by our first key columns. So we're going to do ship date, customer key. And as you can see, I'm just building, you know, a smaller version of the fact table in Power Query. Promotion key, currency key, let's say, and we've got sales territory key. Okay, and we're going to do order total as a sum, not an average. There we go, order quantity, rather. And I'll do one more, which is the sales amount. I do have some other columns, but yeah, this is a short demo. So we'll do sales amount. There we go. Okay, let's click OK. Now, while it's doing this, I want to flick to the monitor section. Okay, and we've got a SQL requests. Okay, and this is the important part of Synapse Analytics SQL Serverless, because this is not a free service. You are paying to use it. And it's all based on the amount of data processed. And it's currently around $5 for 1 terabyte of data. So for example, if you were to run one single select query that touched a terabyte of data and aggregated it down, you'll pay $5. Okay, so it is a very important screen to look at and check this data processed, okay, to see what's happening under the hood. Okay, so we have our aggregated table. Now, if we right click, and I'm not going to name, I've seen some really good naming of the Power Query steps. If I click on the view data source query, I think you know, people familiar with query folding will understand this. We've actually got the SQL query itself that will be run on the Synapse Analytics. Okay, so we're going to save and close. We'll validate the queries. Let's give it a name. We're going to go DC demo. We'll save that. Okay, we'll refresh. Okay, we'll go back to our monitor. Have a little look. There we go. You can see we've got we've got some SQL running. Okay, and I could copy that SQL, you know, into another script, for example. Let's create another SQL script. Okay, so we can validate what's happening, make sure that our data flow is doing what we want it to do. Let's close that. And let's refresh. While we're refreshing, let's open up Power BI desktop. Let's just refresh that. Okay, we've got a slow internet connection. There we go. So we've got DC demo. So if I look at refresh history, okay, we can see it refreshing in the background. Okay, we've got Power. Here we go. Power BI. We'll get data from our data flows. Let's have a little look, and we can see, yep, there we go. Refresh history. It's got about 31 seconds and about a minute. We've got our DC demo. We'll have a little look at the data that we've got in there. And I'm not going to go any further. So I normally, you know, transform data. But we now have a data flow that's stored in the Power BI service that is essentially using the power of Synapse Analytics SQL Serverless to do the heavy lifting, to do the processing. And again, if I were to refresh it again, and we go back to the monitor, okay, the monitor in terms of SQL Serverless will be your friend, so you can understand what's happening. So you can see that during the data flow development, that Power BI is reasonably chatty with the service. Okay, so you could adopt a pattern of, a very small CSV or a very small Parquet file that you could do your development with, and then parameterize the folder where the actual data lives itself. Now you might notice that I've got more data processed than the data that's in the Parquet files. I've got, what, 550 meg here, whereas Synapse says that it's processing 795. Now, Parquet is a compressed format, and SQL Serverless is having to uncompress it as it's loading the data. Okay, so as I said, the SQL requests and the monitor are your friend in terms of looking at what's happening under the hood with the SQL Serverless engine. And there we go, we've got our data flow. Now, you could go one step further and actually automate the creation and destruction of a Synapse Analytics workspace where you only ever use the SQL Serverless engine. You don't have to use the dedicated SQL pools, the data warehousing aspects. You could just use the power of the SQL Serverless engine. Okay, so that's. Are there any questions?
Hi, Andy. Yes, I have a question. Thanks for your presentation. And you told that $5 per 1 terabyte of data. But
that's
here
correct.
Yeah, here you have let's say 800 megabyte. Then it will be a part of it, right? Not we don't have to pay $5 for only 800.
No, it's aggregated. It's aggregated, and in fact, if I bring up my, it's going to ask me to sign in again, isn't it? It's good old security though. My cost analysis, I should have a chart already up. I do discuss pricing quite a lot on Twitter in terms of SQL Serverless. I have some good conversations around Snowflake and BigQuery, etc. So if we were to have a very quick look, daily, okay, we're going to have a very quick look at this quarter. My Synapse workspace. Let's have a little look. Synapse and my meter category. Let's have a little look at the meter category. So data processed. It's cost me £1.25 so far. So as you can see here, November the 18th and 19th, you can see that I was pretty busy doing some SQL Serverless work, but essentially you are paying. I think it's to the nearest 10 megabytes. I would have to confirm. I'll take that away and have a look and probably tweak that out. But it's aggregated. It's not. You're not paying for a minimum amount per query. It's going to be aggregated.
Got it. Okay. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Andy, would we be paying for every data refresh, right? So every time the data flow is refreshed, we would be charged for that?
You would be. So okay. For example, my demo here, let's say that was live, and that's 800 meg. So what's that? It's about 8 gig, about 24 gig a month. You're talking a few pennies, really. Yeah. So, like with any product, you're looking at is the benefit to using SQL Serverless, does that outweigh any cost? So if you do have a lot of data in your data lake, and you're wondering, well, okay, so we might need to put a process in to maybe pre-aggregate and transform that data down to a smaller data set for us to then bring into Power BI, because we can't just expect Power BI to just bring in, hundreds of millions of raw data rows and deal with it itself. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I will actually bring up, yes, a consideration. So cost. So it does cost money. When you're developing, maybe use some smaller files, just while you're getting going. And the data at rest doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you're going to see. So you could see with the Parquet files, I had 550 meg, but you saw nearly 800 because it's a compressed file format. It needs to get the data out of that file format, but it's a lot more efficient than CSV. And of course, from an infrastructure,
sorry. Also, we would also pay if Power BI sends any query, right? No.
Yes. So anything that touches SQL Serverless that runs a query will cost you money. Yes. Now, yes. So what you can do, and I needed to add this in, is that you do have the ability to cap the amount of data that's processed. So we do have in is it manage SQL pools? Yep, you've got this little icon here. Okay, so I can enable a daily limit of, let's say, a terabyte, a weekly limit of 2 terabytes, and a monthly limit of 4 terabytes. Okay, so worst case, I'm going to pay $20 a month for my cap. So there we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. That was awesome.
Okay, good stuff.
Wow, yeah. I feel like we need another presentation just for you to walk us through everything again. It's just it's a lot.
Yeah, it'll be on my blog. I'll tweet it out. I'm having a couple of Google verification issues at the moment with my website, so it should be up and running tomorrow.
Awesome.
But it basically takes you through how to set up Synapse and how to set up the data flow from start to finish.
Wow, excellent. All right, yeah, send it to us, to Shannon, and we'll share it with everyone. Thank you so much. All right, so I guess up next we have Alex.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Go ahead and share my screen. Start the timers. I've got 5 minutes. I've got to hit the mark here. So just right off the bat, first and foremost, thank you everyone. I've loved tonight's sessions and activities. I've learned a lot. It was pretty awesome here to just have these quick 5-minute hits. But tonight, RDL migration, creating modern experiences with Power BI. Just going to make the quick introduction. Alex Powers, St. Louis, Missouri. Love cats, love pro wrestling, love data. What is it with people and exporting their content? They spend hours and hours and hours building Power BI reports, and then the first thing asked is, how can I export it? Well, SQL Server Reporting Services is integrated within Power BI. So if you already have an existing on-premises footprint with SSRS, bring that content up into the Power BI service. Let them export to their heart's content. So with that today, our objective is how to programmatically migrate SQL Server Reporting Services to Power BI. Cool. All right, so let me jump right into the demo. There's an article out on the Microsoft Docs, migrate SQL Server Reporting Services reports to Power BI. This gives you the complete pre-migration stages, post, what you should look at, what you should consider. So migration stage, and then the automated migration. We have an RDL migration tool. So you don't have to do this migration yourself. Out on the GitHub, go ahead and download this as a zip. So just download the content here, unzip it into a directory, and then let me go ahead and close this here real quick so I can get to my folder. Awesome. So we've unzipped it. We have the RDL migration. It's got all the content, release, bins, all the fun stuff. At the very end here, we actually need to create just an app registration. So we're going to read and write all data sets, read and write all reports, and read all workspaces. This will be a native application. So the embedding tool I've signed in, call this RDL demo. Remember, it was a native read and write, read all, and then what was the last one? Read all workspaces. Cool. Hit register. Boom. I've now created a app out in Azure. I have my client ID. As part of this, I actually need to add it to a group. So here within your Azure Active Directory, new group, create that group. It's the security group. So if I was to click into this, I see my members here now. I have my RDL migration service principal that we created. Once again, security group. Jump out into Power BI, allow service principals to use Power BI APIs. So it's allowing that service principal we created, that group that we also created. I've added it here. I can see my little RDL migration tool has been added to my group right there. Cool. So we've got that checked off. Let me zoom back out. Whew. Whew. Created an app, put it in a group, added it to the tenant within my service principal. Now I need to look at the code here. So how do I actually run this? Your base URL endpoint, the file path, the workspace name, and then our client ID. So kind of good example down here, the SSRS server name. So if I go to my config, I have the web portal URL. Right here is that URL. Jump out over into reporting services. I have my sales folder. I click in this. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 reports. Maybe it was 7, maybe it was 700. You know, whatever the number is. I open up PowerShell. So I've got my content stored out in that bin, that RDL migration. I unzipped it. I'm now going to add this here. So let me go ahead and copy this now. I'm going to paste it right here. We're going to run this. Starting the login window. Yes, I have an admin account. Not really too worried about it. Got that service principal too. Power BI champs via awesome. Login. Successfully converting. Let me move this to the left. Let me move this to the right. If you're in the world of consultants or internal projects and you're like, they've asked me to migrate this content, here you go. Look at that. Programmatically, you've now moved your SQL Server reporting services into Power BI with the help of the script. That's it. You're done. 5 minutes. So from here, obviously, you'll want to just go ahead and create kind of the subscriptions. That is just information that does not come through. And then just the connection strings as well, just, you know, through a data gateway or whatever it may be. But what I would recommend, I'm going to drop this page in here right now into the chat. Drop this here. Awesome. Cool. So this is the complete guidance. I've been working closely with Chris Finland. There will be some updated articles and possibly a video over on the Guy in the Cube. So we'll go in this to a little bit more depth, but at least in this 5-minute window that I had, I wanted to show you if you were in a company or, you know, once again, if you're a consultant, you're taking on a project of migrating, you know, data analytics, whether it be SQL Server analysis services or reporting services. A lot of this stuff you can do today, and it's not as large as you may think. You know, in our example, we did 7 reports. Maybe it was 700. You know, it could just be 1 day worth of work, and you're done. But with that, any questions? Let me know. Have you used this tool yet? Were you aware that it existed?
No, I wasn't aware it existed.
Yeah, I wasn't aware either. This is totally new for me.
Yeah.
Is it with so does this work? Yeah, so this is on. Okay, yeah, this, and you can obviously go between Power BI report server to another Power BI report server.
Yeah, I mean, if you were having to do some like cloning, at least on this, it has pretty good. Let me see here if they have the considerations and limitations at the end. Yeah, they talk about configuring kind of the data sources. The reason why I like this tool is it's got a pretty good success rate. So if you have a report that maybe doesn't make it up, it'll give you that output. And then from there, it's just like, well, hey, what would it take to actually reimagine this report if there's just a functionality that does not work? Yeah, like this right here.
Oh, yeah.
So if there are those considerations, limitations, but I want to say that at least the product group is set at about a 90% success rate. So that's like 9 out of every 10 reports can make it up there. I would take those odds.
Yeah, I did this for a client and helped them do it, and they were really happy that they didn't have to do a lot of manual work, and yeah, they liked it. So it definitely works, guys.
Thanks, Robbie. Awesome. All right, so with that, everyone, if we're not already kind of hanging out on Twitter, definitely find me over there. Just Not About to Sell, or over on LinkedIn, just LinkedIn/n Alex M. Powers. Always love hanging out with the community, and especially just a kind of a fun 5-minute event like tonight. Just to let our hair down and kind of enjoy each other. Just ending out the year. It's been a rough one here for the COVID. Cool. Well, with that, thank you everyone for your time. I'll pass it back to the host. Thank you.
Yay! I'm clapping. Shannon.
Yeah. All right. So, Rocio, thank you so much for hosting and running the show. Thank you to all of our speakers. This was, I would say, maybe one of our most successful meetings of the year, although we've had a lot, so it's really hard to say. But I want to thank everybody just for joining us. We've had so many new faces throughout the year, so many returning faces, no old faces, because we're all youthful. Course. But it's just so great to see everybody. And what we'll do is we will stay on the line just like we normally do for about 15 more minutes, just so people can chat. If you have to jump off, feel free, no pressure. We'll go ahead and stop the recording now. But before we do that, just a huge thank you to all of our presenters. This has been really awesome. I asked for demos less than a week ago. And here we are. So those of you who are thinking about starting your own user groups, it is possible, even if you're a procrastinator. But just thanks again, everybody. This was really awesome. We'll post the recording probably tomorrow, and I'll drop the playlist link in the chat right now for those of you that want to see it. And with that, I'll just say thanks, and let's open up the floor. Feel free to turn on your videos, and let's chat.